In every story of human endeavor, there is a flame. It flickers in a darkened room, a solitary light that promises warmth, but also threatens to consume everything it touches. This flame is desire, the restless yearning for more, for greatness, for transformation. Our journey into the heart of ambition begins not with a thunderous declaration, but with a whisper, an inner voice that insists, "You can be more than this." And in that whisper, the descent truly begins. Throughout history, this drive has been the spark that ignites the fuse of change. The ancient Greeks called it thumos, the spirited fire that separates a life of mere existence from one of extraordinary achievement. The philosopher Plato saw in this spirit the very fuel of heroes and visionaries. But fire, by its nature, must be handled with care. Left unchecked, it carves paths that are as wondrous as they are treacherous. Consider the timeless tragedy of Doctor Faustus. A brilliant and respected scholar, he grows weary of the boundaries of human knowledge. His ambition becomes a ritual unto itself, a slow, deliberate series of choices and sacrifices, culminating in a pact with darkness. His ritual is not a single dramatic moment, but a gradual slide, each step fueled by the burning desire to transcend his mortal limits. His tale stands as a stark warning of ambition's double-edged nature, the potential for greatness, forever shadowed by the risk of total ruin. This ritual, however, is not confined to the pages of literature. History is written by individuals whose personal rituals of ambition set them on transformative journeys. Thomas Edison famously declared that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. For him, ambition was a daily rite, endless nights in his laboratory, 1,000 failed experiments for every success, and an unyielding refusal to surrender. Each attempt, each setback, was another step deeper into the labyrinth of his own aspirations.
Ambition demands ritual because it demands action. The innovator, the artist, the leader, they begin to shape their lives around their goals. The early mornings, the relentless practice, the sacrifice of comfort and stability, these are the offerings made at the altar of ambition. The ritual emerges in the repeated behaviors, the disciplined routines, the mindset that declares, "I will not settle." Yet, as the descent continues, this fire can cast long and menacing shadows. The more one invests in the ritual, the harder it becomes to turn back. Relationships may fray, values may blur, and the original spark can warp into a consuming obsession. Herein lies the paradox. The very drive that propels us forward can also be the one that pulls us into the depths. Imagine standing at the crossroads where desperation meets desire. A fateful bargain has been struck, a pact sealed in hope or in haste. And almost immediately, the world pivots on its axis. What was once impossibly out of reach now tumbles effortlessly into waiting hands. Wealth flows, accolades rain down, and doors once stubbornly barred now swing wide open. It is a heady, electrifying rush, a sudden success that glitters with the promise of dreams fulfilled. It might begin with a single, improbable stroke of fortune. A struggling musician sells out an arena overnight. A writer's debut novel rockets to the top of the bestseller list. The phone begins to ring, and it does not stop. Invitations, opportunities, and praise flood in, overwhelming the senses. Friends and strangers alike marvel at this meteoric rise, whispering of destiny or raw talent, never suspecting the unseen price that made it all possible. This is the great illusion of triumph. On the surface, it is a fairy tale. But beneath the glittering facade, doubt begins to flicker. The achievements feel strangely hollow, like biting into a perfect gleaming apple, only to find it tasteless and dry.
Despite the outward success, a nagging feeling persists that something is wrong. Old friends seem distant. Genuine laughter becomes a rarity. The applause fades too quickly, leaving behind not satisfaction, but a ringing echo in the silence. Mythology is filled with these cautionary tales. Faust, who traded his soul for all the knowledge and power in the world, discovered his gifts could not fill the void within him. The legendary bluesman Robert Johnson, rumored to have sold his soul at a crossroads, found his talent soaring while his life remained troubled and tragically short. These stories endure because they touch upon a universal truth. Fulfillment chased through shortcuts often slips through our fingers as quickly as it arrives. The one who made the bargain, now riding the high of their sudden success, begins to wonder. A chilling question begins to form. Did I earn this, or was it merely granted by the magic of the bargain? They are surrounded by admiration, yet utterly isolated by their secret. And the higher they climb, the more precarious their position feels, like standing atop a house of cards, knowing a single breath could bring the entire structure crashing down. The illusion of triumph, while dazzling, is fragile, and just beneath its surface, the true cost of the bargain begins to stir. What begins as a dream come true can quietly morph into a source of dread. Consider the story of Theranos, once hailed as a titan of Silicon Valley. Its founder, Elizabeth Holmes, graced magazine covers, speaking with unwavering passion about revolutionizing medicine. Investors poured in hundreds of millions of dollars. But behind the scenes, the immense pressure to deliver on impossible promises bred a culture of secrecy and shortcuts. Employees who voiced doubt were silenced. The technology, so widely celebrated, simply did not work. The public image was dazzling. The hidden reality was a maelstrom of anxiety, fear, and mounting deception.
The higher the company climbed, the more hollow its core became, a beautiful shell, ready to crack. This pattern is not unique to the world of technology. Artists, too, can be crushed by the weight of their own success. Harper Lee's debut novel, To Kill a Mockingbird, became an instant and beloved classic. The world waited for more, but the pressure paralyzed her. For decades, she published nothing else, reportedly overwhelmed by the impossibility of living up to her own masterpiece. A joyous achievement had become a source of profound apprehension. Even corporate giants are not immune. Boeing, a name once synonymous with safety, faced its own unraveling with the 737 MAX crisis. Years of relentless cost-cutting and fierce competition led to critical engineering compromises. Internal warnings went unheeded. The company's outward confidence masked an environment where dissent was suppressed and unease was allowed to fester. When tragedy struck, the facade shattered, exposing the decay that had grown for years in the dark. These cracks form from a toxic combination of unrealistic expectations, relentless pressure, and the paralyzing fear of failure. The very celebration of success becomes a trap, forcing leaders into a cycle of denial. Instead of admitting challenges, they double down on the illusion of perfection, because the stakes feel too high to risk vulnerability. Even the most outwardly successful can feel like frauds, terrified of the moment they will be exposed. And ironically, the more they achieve, the greater the pressure becomes to maintain the charade. The brighter the spotlight, the deeper the shadows it casts. Then, the reckoning. As the infernal forces tighten their grip, the consequences become agonizing. The true cost of the pact is laid bare. What once seemed a tempting shortcut now reveals itself as a path of relentless torment. The price is no longer theoretical. It is immediate, personal, and devastating.
Sleepless nights become the norm, haunted by nightmares where whispers replay every compromise. The physical strain manifests in insidious ways, a persistent chill that burrows into the bone, a heaviness in the chest, a flicker of unnatural light in the eyes that loved ones notice but cannot name, a voice that sometimes echoes with a timbre not entirely their own. In folklore, those who strike such deals may receive a sudden windfall, but they soon find themselves paying in currencies they never imagined. The Faustian bargain offers the world's riches at the cost of the soul. The initial gain is always overshadowed by an unbearable debt. But the psychological torment is often worse. The contract is designed to isolate, to corrode, and to ultimately break the will. Guilt and paranoia fester. Every relationship becomes strained, poisoned by a secret that deepens the loneliness. Even moments of triumph are tainted by the knowledge that each success only strengthens the infernal hold. The social cost is just as profound. As the dark influence grows, friends withdraw, careers falter, and reputations are ruined. Sometimes the price is an act of betrayal, turning on an ally, sacrificing a cherished value, committing an act that can never be undone. The reckoning is not just about what is taken, it is about what is demanded. The victim is forced to choose between unbearable alternatives, each more harrowing than the last. Perhaps the cruelest aspect is the relentless escalation. The terms of the pact always shift, tightening like a noose. It is a living contract, its ink bleeding into new, more terrible clauses. The creditor is never satisfied, always finding new ways to extract more loyalty, more secrets, more pieces of the self. In the end, the price is not just unbearable, it is inescapable. The infernal debt is always paid, and the currency is suffering. The world watches in awe as ordinary people ascend to unimaginable heights.
But as history proves, the line between the pinnacle and the prison is dangerously thin. Look at the infamous fall of Enron. In the late 1990s, its executives were hailed as financial wizards. Their headquarters in Houston became a gleaming temple to American ambition. But behind the soaring stock prices was a maze of accounting tricks and outright deception. When the truth was exposed in 2001, Enron imploded. Tens of thousands lost their jobs and life savings. The CEO, Jeffrey Skilling, went from the boardroom to a prison cell, where he would remain for over a decade. The illusion of unstoppable success had shattered. And consider Elizabeth Holmes. At just 19, she dropped out of Stanford to found Theranos. Backed by powerful investors, she became the world's youngest self-made female billionaire, her black turtleneck a symbol of disruptive genius. But the technology was a fraud, endangering lives with faulty results. In 2022, Holmes was convicted and sentenced to more than 11 years in prison. Her meteoric rise and catastrophic fall became a defining cautionary tale for a generation. These collapses send shockwaves through entire industries. Employees lose their jobs, investors lose their fortunes, and public trust erodes. Behind every spectacular downfall are countless lives upended. The journey is driven by a culture that too often values perception over substance. Shortcuts are justified, red flags are ignored, and skepticism is silenced. The higher the climb, the steeper the fall. And when the truth finally surfaces, the consequences are swift and severe. From pinnacle to prison, it is a stark reminder that illusions, no matter how grand, cannot last. Ambition has always been a double-edged sword. On one side, it fuels our greatest achievements. On the other, it can consume and destroy. We see this tragic paradox play out time and again. In the tale of Macbeth, a noble desire for greatness, spurred by prophecy, descends into a spiral of betrayal, murder, and madness. His ambition erodes his morals, his relationships, and his sanity. The final whisper for Macbeth is not the roar of triumph, but the chilling silence of isolation and regret. History is replete with real-world examples. Robert Falcon Scott, the British explorer, was obsessed with being the first to reach the South Pole. His relentless drive pushed his team into perilous conditions, overlooking crucial preparations in their quest for glory. Scott and his companions perished on the return journey, their ambition freezing them in place, a grim testament to the cost of overreaching. Even in our own lives, the toll can be subtle but devastating. The drive to climb the corporate ladder can lead people to neglect their health, their families, and their own happiness. Burnout, anxiety, and fractured relationships often follow. The final whisper of ambition isn't always a dramatic fall. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the form of missed moments, broken connections, or the hollow realization that the summit, once reached, offered none of the fulfillment it promised. The lesson is clear. Ambition, unchecked and unbalanced, can take a deadly toll. It is a force that demands respect, self-awareness, and above all, a wisdom that knows when enough is truly enough.